Okay, we'll officially get started. Thank you everyone that is attending the IACC VISTA Recruitment Strategies. So today I'm just gonna be talking about some of the steps or the roles of IACC and then the roles of the site supervisors, and then we'll turn over to you guys for questions, and then also, like your tips and what you found has been helpful for recruiting VISTAs, just because it's a large team effort here. So I guess here's our agenda, just the timeline for recruitment, the roles of each player. We also have some new stats about what VISTAs look like, their demographics, specifically for VISTA and specifically for Campus Compact, and then just some discussion. For anyone that wants a little refresher, AmeriCorps VISTA is under a much larger umbrella, and VISTA is just a smaller part of it. So this is a map to try to help everyone understand that. But there's VISTA, and then the state office, and then there's us, and then you, and then the VISTA. So there's definitely a large command chain there. But more specifically, we have the timeline to deal with. So right now, we've technically already started recruitment for some of our sites. But right now, what we're looking for from everybody is your position descriptions. Those are the things that we'll put on My AmeriCorps and eGrants. So when people are looking or applying for positions, that's what they're looking at. And then we're also collecting VADs, or VISTA assignment descriptions. These are the things that lay out what the VISTA is going to be doing specifically. We've talked with each of you about these, so I hope you understand that. But we're hoping to have all those turned in for sure by the end of February. So everybody's turned in, so we can start a much wider recruitment process with that. After the position descriptions are loaded and ready to go, that's when the recruitment process starts. So this is seeking out those potential VISTAs, those applicants, processing the applications, and holding your interviews. This is between now and between May and June. The reason there's May and June is because there's two different cohorts. Some people start in June and some people start in July. April 20th and June 8th, depending on when your cohort starts, is when we would like the candidate to be selected. And then by April 27th, we would like or June 15th, we'd like all the paperwork to be submitted. So the earlier the better, in case there's any problems with the paperwork or something didn't get processed correctly. If we get them in early, then we can catch those problems, so there's no delay in the start. And then early June or late July is when each of the VISTAs start. We're still waiting on dates, so we can't give you the exact timeline. Right now, as I upload each position, I've just been putting June 1st and July 1st, just so the applicants know around the start time, but we just don't have those exact dates just yet. AmeriCorps supplies this recruitment process, so it's just something to consider. It's a nifty little graphic with just going from your planning stage, reaching out to those candidates, screening them, interviewing them, and then finally selecting them. So this is just a pretty simple infographic there. Now, for the recruitment process, IACC versus the site supervisors had two different roles. So on the Iowa Campus Compact side, it's primarily me that's doing this recruitment roles. So most importantly, I'm going to be creating your positions on My AmeriCorps. This is where individuals are applying for your VISTA positions. So as you can see, I just took a screenshot of some of our positions that are already uploaded, ready to go. As people apply for these positions, they click on them, it pulls up all the details, and then there's an Apply Now button. When they apply, I get the applications, but I pass them on to the sites. And then I will also be helping with the recruitment by advertising on larger platforms, like career centers for schools and social media outlets and some other areas. But I'll be doing more of an outreach for Iowa Campus Compact in general and help get applicants to zone in on certain areas. I also have the ability to offer resources for recruiting and interviewing. After this strategy training or whatever, I will be sending out a link to a folder that contains a lot of different resources that might be helpful, including like interview questions for VISTAs, that sort of thing. For the sites, there are specific roles. Emily, can you look at the chat box? Okay. So before the selection, sites are really in charge of the recruiting, the screening of those applicants, the interviewing, and selecting the applicants. So really, this is your process. You want to find that teammate that will fit into your organization or your department at your school. So be actively recruiting. The My AmeriCorps page where they apply, that's just one area that will recruit VISTAs. So yeah, just be looking in a lot of areas. When I do send on applicants that have actually applied through My AmeriCorps, communicate with them on a timely manner, and then keep those communications open, because this is February and they don't start till June. So June or July. So keep communicating with them. And then it's also important to understand what VISTA means and the benefits and challenges that come with that. I do have a sheet that will come later just describing the exact VISTA benefits and everything, because they're going to be asking you when they're applying about how much they'll get paid and what health insurance looks like and that sort of thing. After the selection, it's extremely important to talk about the VISTA benefits again, just so they have that clear before they sign up for a year and they back out. We don't want that to happen. Then it's also good if you help them with their final documents that they'll need, and then ease the process of finding housing or food assistance or local attractions, that sort of thing. So for the outreach and the recruitment part, we definitely recommend that you advertise and publicize for your VISTA positions. Like I said earlier, My AmeriCorps is just one area, but it's definitely beneficial to search locally within your community, especially at local colleges or universities. And then another thing to consider is that you should definitely understand the type of VISTA you want, what skills you want them to have, so that when you are screening your applicants, you know what's right for your organization, but it also might help you target what group you want to bring into your organization. Once again, clearly understand what a VISTA is and what it means. And then also I'd recommend enlisting the help of your current VISTAs. They might know avenues and different groups of people to target to find those applicants that you might want. So who are VISTAs? Certain things that you should keep in mind. Nationally, they have these stats, and so they found that 80% are female, and another 80%, well, the same 80% probably, are born 1982 or later. So we found that most of the time applicants are right out of college. So that's something to consider when you're looking for them. Then 62% are actually local recruits. So they're from the community or from the state. 38% are national recruits. I feel like this year we didn't reflect those numbers as much. We had quite a few recruits that were from out of state, but that was unusual, I think, compared to the other years. Do you know, Emily? What? We got a lot of out of state applicants this year. Is that common for our group?
We do have some sites that are able to attract applicants from outside of Iowa that apply and find the positions on the My AmeriCorps website. It's been about 50-50. So we usually tell our kids not to assume that that's going to be the case. We definitely to work local recruitment angles, because it's not a guarantee that you'll be able to attract someone to the space position. And that might not be the best fit for your site.
Thank you, Emily. It's also important to remember that VISTAs have to be at least 18 years old. IACC, we've found that we usually prefer college graduates. They also have to be U.S. citizens or legal residents. They must be able to serve for a full year. Those are just technical ones. But Campus Compact, as a national level, they surveyed all the VISTAs from 2014 to find out why individuals would serve with Campus Compact specifically. So some of the key things that they found is that these VISTAs wanted to reduce social and economic inequality. And they also chose these sites because they wanted to develop skills that would be good for future jobs or skills, or future jobs or going to school again. But they also asked, including me, I got surveyed for this. They asked us why we chose these in more of a narrative form. And so they pulled out some prevalent themes. And the number one theme was that most of the time they chose VISTA positions with campus compacts because these VISTAs wanted to explore career paths that are in higher education. And then the second reason was because they had a connection to the host site. So a lot of times it was because they were a student on that campus, or because they had met other VISTAs that had served there and they made a connection that way. So that's something to, yeah.
Okay. I would just add to this, the reasons I think this is interesting and useful to you as you think about recruitment. When you think about how you're advertising the position, as you're reaching out locally and the things we're putting together, we'll be thinking about this too. Just how to connect your VISTA position to the impact on the community that ultimately the work will result in, because that's a lot of the time, that's what people are looking for. They want to get into your search and they want to be making an impact. And this type of deal is a little bit more challenging to see what that impact will be. So just helping them to understand that, yeah, maybe they'll be the best most of the time, but at the end of the day, more kids will have mentors, or any other examples from our site. So helping that, and also tying the skills you think they will be able to gain through the position. So the specific types of things we'll be doing there could be skill building for future jobs, that kind of thing. I think that's important to think about. I need the slides though. Oh, so you can't run the slide? Okay, sorry. And then just thinking about for your local recruitment efforts, I think it's good to note, wanting to explore higher education. Not all of our sites are on campuses, but all of our sites have campus partnerships. That's a part of the model of our program. So playing up the fact that they get that higher ed experience, no matter your site, I think is good. And then the personal connection is really important. Just trying to recruit from any of the networks you have where you might find people who have a connection to the kind of work you're doing is a great way to approach recruitment.
Thank you, Emily. One thing I wanted to look at was the VISTA member benefits, just to remind everybody. Can you hear me? It was making a weird, okay. So VISTAs get a living allowance, which for 2016 is going to be just under $900. This varies slightly between counties, but not much. And then they also have the option of an education award, which for 2016 is $5,775 this year, or a stipend of $1,500 if they choose not to go the education route. VISTA also supplies professional development on the VISTA campus. There are health benefits, and there's two different branches. If we want to go into this, you can ask questions, or I can send an email that's more detailed about that. They do want VISTAs to be insured, though, with an actual insurance company. They also offer child care benefits up to $400 per month if you have an individual that might be actually have a family and children. There's mileage reimbursement. This is only if the site doesn't provide them with reimbursement for their work. Most of our sites do already, so I wouldn't worry about that. VISTA also supplies moving help through reimbursement of the travel and moving costs. And then there's also a slightly higher paycheck to help handle like deposit costs and first rent, those sort of things. There's also emergency funds in case something happens. So VISTA members do have some benefits, but it's still not a lot. So just keep that in mind. There are things that you can do to help your VISTA though. So sponsors or sites, they are allowed to help a VISTA, such as giving them housing, providing housing, or providing a housing stipend. Others give like food or gift certificates, gift cards to things, or even gas cards, clothing, health insurance, if your site is able to provide that, and ongoing training. One thing to always also think about is VISTAs usually qualify for some sort of food assistance through the SNAP program, sometimes housing assistance. So helping them figure that out, or even sending them to the VISTA leader, can be very helpful, just because they might not always know how to go about getting those resources. Also creating a list of local attractions or events for your VISTAs, especially if they're moving from great distances away. They don't know what's going on in your city. And then now that VISTA is allowed to have outside employment, it might be helpful if you ever come across a good part-time employment and you think it would be acceptable for your VISTA to work. It might draw a little bit more of an attraction as well. VISTA and housing is our biggest issue, just because of their level of income that they are receiving. So it's very important to know your VISTA status when this is essentially after you have selected a candidate. I was just at a training with the state office, and they said it's a very common problem for VISTAs to go to PSO, which is their pre-service orientation, and they don't have housing yet. So one thing to consider when you have selected a VISTA is to advise the VISTA on inexpensive areas to live in, or see if you can even find a roommate situation. I know on AmeriCorps alum, like on their Facebook page, they're advertising a lot for VISTAs, other VISTAs who are trying to find housing. And then use your own connections and your own network to ask other staff or community members about housing leads. If they are having trouble finding housing, especially for the smaller communities, it might be worth, offering temporary housing just so they can help, or so they can get a better search for their housing. And then do take into consideration that when VISTAs is starting, they're also moving in at the same time, so giving them a little leeway for settling in. We wanted to include some interviewing strategies. So as a site, you're in charge of interviewing your candidates because you're going to be working with them. So we want you to have a full say in who your candidate will be. So the how and when is really up to each site, but we can offer you resources such as interviewing questions and other things. But we do not have funding for traveling for those applicants or anything. So most of the time, a lot of the sites are doing interviews over virtual means, Skype or Google, that sort of thing. Things to consider when you are interviewing is, how do you want that interviewing to happen? How many rounds of interviews will you have? If you have a lot of candidates, will you have an official process like a rubric or questions? Will you choose to interview everyone, or will you, if you find a candidate, just move on from there? And then also just know what skills you need, and don't be afraid to ask the VISTAs about whether or not this is their first choice, or if they're ready to commit to a full year of service. It is definitely a commitment to choose to do a year of VISTA, so you want to make sure you're choosing the right candidate. So we also have a few tips before we go into the discussion mode. So the first tip would be just to start now. So most of our VISTA applicants are recent grads. So this is spring semester, and they're starting to really think about what they want to do after graduation. And our start times are perfect for right after graduation. So we have a lot of people that are trying to choose their career paths right now. Speediness with your communication. This is just based off, Vistas usually accept the first position they're offered. So if you can step up, we don't want you to be too quick and choose a wrong person, but we don't want you to hold back and then find that they've already accepted another position and moved on. So communication, keeping that open is good. Most of our VISTA applicants are recent grads, but don't overlook the more mature applicants that are from the community or that already work at your organization. They can definitely be great VISTAs. Any help that, and then the last tip is any help that you can offer your VISTA will really help your recruitment. So sites that offer housing specifically fill up much faster than sites that don't have that ability. We do understand that some sites just can't offer that, but just get creative with what you can help your VISTA out with, and your recruitment will go much better. Just a shout out, we're looking for a VISTA leader to replace me, so just keep that in mind. We're looking for our next member of our IACC team. So right now, what? Okay, Emily's gonna throw in a couple things, but then I just kind of wanted to talk to you guys about some of your best recruitment strategies that you found, or things that you notice that you look out for, challenges you have. But Emily, if you want to throw in your, and I will mute.
Sorry, we're trying to manage having two computers because sometimes it's awkward to sit around one. So thanks, Katie, for all of that great feedback. We want to have a little bit of time because I know there are folks who have done this a number of times who may have tips of what's gone well and what hasn't gone well for them, and others may have questions for things that we haven't covered thus far. I'll just offer a couple of things that I've seen recently just to reinforce what Katie said, that getting in touch with applicants as they apply very quickly is important, and keeping the interview process rolling. It's also very important to make sure that you're to clearly communicate what VISTA is, what the pay is, what the benefits are, that kind of thing, and don't assume they know that. I think we've run into in the past that people assume if someone's applying to VISTA, then they get what it is and they're prepared to take that on, but that's not always the case. Sometimes people just see the position and are attracted to your position and don't necessarily understand that they're applying for a VISTA position or what that means. So making sure that in your interviews you're having very clear conversations about what the what the pay level is, what the other benefits are, not to scare people off, but at the same time, you don't want to have someone accept the position and then fully understand what all is involved later and end up backing down. We've seen that happen when then it's too late for sites to find another candidate. So you certainly want to make sure they're going in eyes wide open and they have all of those questions answered. And Katie and I are always available to be a resource too if they have other questions just about VISTA more generally and want to have a conversation with either of us before making the decision. We're always happy to do that. So I think those are good things. And then, as Katie mentioned, even after you have made an offer and had that offer accepted, making sure you're staying in contact with a VISTA member leading up until them starting with your site. You can send them emails that are examples of things you're working on, just kind of keeping the momentum going so that they maintain their energy and excitement for starting the position, because usually that's a couple of months of downtime from the excitement of accepting it to actually going, and you don't want them to lose any of the energy in that time and potentially reconsider. You want to start including them as a member of your team in any ways you can, and start bringing them on board early at that time. So those are some of the things that I've just seen in recent years work and not work. Just want to throw it out if there are questions on things that we didn't cover yet that you still have questions about. you may have additional questions, especially some of you who are newer supervisors, about VISTA more generally and how the year is going to go for your member. And we will be covering that. We'll do another training later in May once we've had a chance to get through some of the recruitment phase of things, to just talk about how the year will go and how we'll work together and hopefully answer some of those questions. But any other questions about recruitment and that kind of thing at this point? Okay, hopefully that means we've covered everything really well. Does anybody who's on and has done this in the past want to offer any thoughts on what's worked well or what hasn't?
This is Karen. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm on the phone, so I can never tell whether you guys can hear or not. Having done this several times and having lost 3 VISTA applicants in 1 year who had accepted and then backed out, I can't stress, and Katie, thank you, the sooner we do this, the better. And then the making sure they really understand what the position entails. Because that's where I got in trouble a couple years ago and ended up without the VISTA. And so just sooner the better, keep them informed and ask lots of questions to really ascertain if they understand what it is. Because I was even hiring somebody who'd already served as a VISTA, so she should have known what it meant to be a VISTA. But because this was a little different position than what she'd done before, I'm not sure that she really got it. And we lost her. I mean, she just decided at the last minute to back out.
Thanks, Karen. That's a good caution and thing to be aware of. We haven't had that happen very often, so I don't want to make it seem like it's something that is frequent, but it is really important, again, to make sure you're having those clear conversations early about what all the benefits and expectations are.
Any other pearls of wisdom that anybody has?
I don't know if it's a pearl of wisdom, but the other day I had someone send me, it's serviceyear.org, and you can upload service opportunities such as this to that website. So I think I'm going to try that out this year and see if it'll garner any applicants.
Thank you for sharing that, Ashley.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. That's a great idea.
And then it looks like Tom has a question, but I'm not sure if I understand the question. Tom, can you maybe, I don't know, maybe you don't have a microphone. It says, what if you're clear and they're unable to meet the requirements? I don't know if I'm totally understanding what you're asking, but obviously, you know, the VISTA is pretty straightforward in terms of what the pay is and what the benefits are. And if someone's unable to live at that level or make that work, then VISTA is probably not going to be the right fit for them. Of course, you want to help them to figure out how it can work, you know, so again, helping them consider local housing options. If think about whether an additional part-time job would help them make it work. But there's really, you can't supplement a VISTA's income or really change the position in any way if that's, you know, not an option for them. I don't know if that answers your question, so please go ahead and type additional information if it didn't. Oh, service year, let me look that up. Serviceyear.org, I'll type that in here. That's another resource that's been created, and partially it was created as a platform for national service opportunities that are outside of AmeriCorps and VISTA. so that there would be a platform for national service outside of that specific federal agency. But I think it is potentially a good resource to explore, and I think that's something that Katie could look at as well for something for us to help with for the overall VISTA program.
I have another question here.
Yep.
Okay, as for the resources, I have an email that's ready to go that will have some resources attached for the recruiting process and with different documents and such, but I also have a folder created on just in Google Forms that has a much more resources. I just attached a few things.
Awesome, thanks, Katie.
Tom, I don't know if anyone has seen this. He also asked, does anyone have ideas how to convince a VISTA to stay on for a second year?
Others may have thoughts on this, but I know that, you know, again, thinking about any additional benefits your organization might be able to add to the mix for them. They cannot be any cash benefits. There can't be an exchange of funds, but if you're able to throw in a gas card or a grocery card or anything that is an additional perk for them. But I would also think about how you could work with them to make a second year a greater professional development experience. So maybe they don't want to stay a second year because they feel like it's just going to be the same experience and not really move them forward. So if there's a way you can give them additional responsibilities or add additional professional development opportunities, so that the second year is a way for them to continue to grow as a professional and build upon their resume and prepare for what they want to do in the future. I think that those are good ways to potentially attract a VISTA member for a second year, which is always a wonderful thing to try to do. It's very helpful to have someone in a second year. It's also not extremely common. Every year we've had maybe 2 or 3 people stay a second year at most. It's typically something, you know, people are planning on just doing for 1 year and really just that's what they have in mind. But those are some ideas that might work.
Hey, Emily, can you tell us a little bit about how a cash stipend would work or a stipend would work for housing if we can't provide like monetary support?
Yeah. What I do with our VISTA leader is have a check cut directly to their landlord.
Okay.
So that's how I've done it the past couple of years. And that way, again, well, for 2 things. One, because you're not supposed to give a VISTA additional income. So anything where you're just writing them a check is going to be fuzzy, even if it's supposed to be for rent.
Mm-hmm.
They also will likely be taxed on it. So that's another
Okay.
reason that I've done the check directly to a landlord or a roommate, because then it's not something that's going to be potentially considered taxable income for them. So,
Okay.
yep.
And would that have to be a like official check from, let's say, United Way or the host site, or can it just be from like a personal check? Is there any kind of guidance there?
Not really. I mean, it seems like it would be a little strange if it was a personal check. I'm not. Maybe we should talk a little bit more about the circumstances there.
And, you know, I'm asking, as you know, we have other sites who are not part of Campus Compact. And so that's why I'm bringing in the United Way, because that's a, you know, possibility outside of Iowa Campus Compact.
Yeah. I mean, I think certainly it makes the most sense to me that it would be an organization providing the housing benefit.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. If you want to talk about any other specific possibilities, we could certainly discuss them, but want things to be above board and all. The other thing is, and this doesn't really apply to anybody, but if you had more than one VISTA at your site, you're required to provide them with the same benefits.
Mm-hmm.
So, but most of our sites only have one VISTA, so that wouldn't necessarily be an issue. I know. Any other questions or tips for today?
Not for me.
Otherwise, we're excited to get going with everybody. If you have not sent your position description to Katie, please do so ASAP so we can get going. And then the VISTA assignment descriptions are due at the end of the month. So let us know if you have any questions about that. All right.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily and Katie.
Katie and Emily.
Thank you.
Everybody. Have a good weekend. Happy Valentine's Day all.
Yeah, happy Valentine's Day.
Tom, if you have to provide the same benefits even if one's new and one's returning. Is typically the requirement. So we can talk about your individual situation, and I think he jumped.